Okay, so I'm back doing, well, another one of these. There wasn't really much I feel like I want to talk about. Like, well, I say there wasn't much I want to talk about. Like, there wasn't really anything in particular that sort of majorly happened that I sort of have to get off my chest. I just sort of... I feel like I need to talk about a specific emotion, feeling. I don't think it is an emotion, it's more like a state of... I don't really know. It's hard to describe. But that state of being, or whatever the hell you want to call it, is limerence. And so, for those of you that know what limerence is, either you sort of suffer with the same thing, where you experience it, in which case I'm sorry, because it sucks. Or if you don't know what it is, I'll try and describe it in the least creepy way possible, because I'm pretty sure the Google definition is something like being infatuated with someone. And that just sounds really stalkerish. But I think the problem isn't that you're infatuated with them. Or maybe it is, I don't know. It's just... like, you can't help feeling that way. And it's not like you're infatuated with them in a sort of... Like I say, it's not a creepy way or anything. It's just... you feel such a deep emotional connection that you sort of want that to be reciprocated, but obviously not everybody's a fucking weirdo like that. And so, it oftentimes never is. And I mean, even if it is, the slightest thing that, like, doesn't go as expected makes you feel awful. Absolutely terrible. So, like, limerence it's great until it isn't. And unfortunately, more often than not, it isn't great. It can give you the absolute highest highs you've ever experienced. Like, it can give you the greatest time you could ever imagine. And that's great, you know, when you're in there. But there is a downside to that. And the downside is it can also give you the lowest lows you've ever imagined. Like, it can really, really suck. And a lot of the time you end up just sort of... oh, mate, you end up just sort of switching between the two quite often. Like, it's not something where you'll be in... you know, you'll be the happiest you've been for months, and then for a few days you'll just be like, oh, I really don't want to talk to anyone. It's literally every other day could either be incredibly happy or borderline suicidal. Like, there's no in between. And that is exhausting. That is really, really tiring. I don't even know how I sort of deal with it on a day-to-day basis. I mean, a lot of the time I don't think I do. I don't think I cope very well with it. And I think the reason I want to talk about this today is because recently, like in the past 3 weeks, you know, I've been talking to somebody new. You know, they showed interest first, which is extraordinarily rare for me. And so I sort of just latched onto that, and I sort of thought, okay, you know, don't mess this up. You've got an open goal here, don't miss it. And I think that sort of made me feel like I'm walking on eggshells, if you're familiar with the phrase. So basically, I feel like I need to sort of watch my step, because otherwise I'll lose it. And I mean, it's great. She's great. I love talking to her. you know, we share similar interests. We clearly have some sort of mutual interest in each other. But, I mean, I've she's very like me in the sort of way of, I don't want to say she's like a closed book, because I don't think she is. You know, we're very, I want to say, like, open with each other. But sometimes, you know, I think due to time differences as well, because she's, I think it's 5 hours behind me, and so it can be a little difficult. I mean, it's not exactly a Herculean task to try and communicate with each other. We do it fairly often. But sometimes, you know, she'll feel quite tired and she'll just go to bed or something without saying anything. But because I haven't had, like, and I know this is going to sound really petty, but I haven't had the sort of message saying, I'm just going to go to bed, you know, don't worry, don't stress or anything. I just sort of think, shit, it's gone. It's over. It's over. And so, like, recently she had a bit of a spat where she was really tired for a couple of days, and she just was basically non-communicative, which I suppose is fair enough. If I'm really tired or, like, really overstimulated or something, I won't want to talk to anyone. And so I can understand why she did it, but for that, like, 2-day period, I had not felt worse. Like, for the longest time, I can't remember ever feeling just that low. It was borderline crippling. You know, I shut myself away. I didn't really talk to anyone. I didn't even eat, and I just sort of spent most of my time sat at my computer desk because I couldn't even bring myself to do the things I enjoy. And then the next day, you know, I received a message saying, I'm really sorry. You know, I've felt really tired over the past couple of days, and you know, it's obviously hindered my ability to talk. And as soon as I received that, and, like, the conversation started flowing a bit easier again, and just like that, I feel like I'm on top of the world. I don't understand how it works or why it works. It just, it's really, really difficult to describe. That there is no sort of one size fits all answer for this sort of thing. I feel like it has a lot of characteristics that are quite common amongst people that experience this sort of thing, but there are also a lot of variables that go into it, and obviously that can be different for a lot of people. But I feel like for me, having sort of contact like that, I mean, from one of my earlier videos on this channel, you might remember me saying it's all I ever really want. As corny as it sounds, I feel like I personally have a lot of love to give, but I just have no one to give it to. And that is really, really depressing. And so when I see this opportunity to possibly get the one thing I want in life, I clutch onto that more than I've ever clung onto anything in my entire life. And obviously when I notice any cracks in that, you know, the brain just starts going into overdrive. It's like, oh Christ, okay, you've got to overthink this and that. What could be doing it? Why could it be doing it? And that is just unbelievably exhausting. Like, I don't know how I'm meant to sort of keep coping like that, because it's just, as I say, it's exhausting. I can't keep sort of going from one extreme to the other instantly, because that just takes a massive toll. And I think I don't even really know what I think. It hurts a lot, because, like I say, when we're talking and sort of communication is steady, you know, it is great. You know, I love talking to her. I feel like we've known each other for ages. Like I say, we share similar interests and we talk about those things, and it's great. The conversation flows. And then, out of nowhere, she'll feel tired or something, and she'll just fall asleep. At least I'm assuming that's what happens. And then it will just go radio silent, and then I will feel extraordinarily threatened instantly. And I hate that I feel like that, because that just puts unnecessary pressure on her, even if I'm trying not to communicate that. Because I don't want to, like, scare her off or anything. You know, like I say, we've only been talking for about 3 weeks. Like, it's really not time for me to start pushing my weight around and saying, can you do this, can you do that? And so I don't, and I just sort of have to live with this until such a point where we know each other better, or, you know, there's been a substantial amount of time, probably both of those. And so I'm just sort of stuck for the time being. And it sucks. It really sucks. Because, I mean, I can't tell you the amount of times in the past 3 weeks alone I've gone from feeling like I'm on top of the world to like I'm in the basement of rock bottom. It's just strange going through that cycle constantly. And there's no other word to describe it other than just exhausting, because it is. I don't know where I stand a lot of the time. You know, for someone like me, it's not that we aren't clear and in the communication and whatnot. It's just more sort of, I need to know exactly where I stand at all times. Otherwise, if there's a hint of ambiguity, then I'm going to overthink it. That is how it is with me, unfortunately. And I know that is extraordinarily high maintenance. That is very, very, very high maintenance. I will not try and pretend I'm not. But like I say, I refuse to communicate that. I make sure whenever we talk, I'm like giving her options. You know, I don't want to pressure her into anything, because, you know, that's just a dick move. I don't want to do that. And so, like I say, she's quite like me in that respect. So I feel like there's just, I don't know, a little bit of a barrier there that we need to sort of get past, but I don't really know how to broach that without sounding too needy or, you know, overbearing. But it's just the limerence. I hate it. I even hate the word because of the connotations it sort of carries for me. It's just, I feel like such a loser, because a lot of the time I'm just sort of, you know, I wake up and I'm either on top of the world, or I'm, well, I could be the worst I've ever been. It's a real strange one, and it's only really one of those that if you experience that, like I do, then you'll know. It'll click with you. You'll be like, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about here. But if you don't know, it just makes you sound like a damn psychopath, because obviously you're just sort of infatuated with this person or these people, even if you don't know them that well, because you are finally getting the positive attention that you crave. And that just sounds, well, that sounds psychopathic. That sounds really controlling. And like I say, that's why I try my best not to communicate it, because I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be that really controlling guy. So I don't. I mean, maybe to my own detriment at points, but I just, it's rough. That's all I can really say. It is extraordinarily rough. It sort of hurts, and then, well, it doesn't hurt, and you sort of forget that it hurts because you're on such a high that you don't really remember it. and then all of a sudden it hits you like a freight train again, and you're not prepared for it because you don't really see the future in that moment. Like, if you're feeling good, you know, you're feeling good, you're in the moment, you're there. You don't really think about what could happen if it goes bad. And then all of a sudden it goes bad and you're in that situation again, and you think to yourself, Christ, why don't I just sort of mentally prepare myself for this? But then, like, it doesn't make a difference, because every time you sort of think, well, every time it goes good again, you're like, okay, right, keep yourself in check, know what's going on here, and then you can sort of work from there, and then you never do. I don't know if that's just a me issue, but it hits like a freight train. And like I say, if it was sort of if the limerence didn't exist and it was just good and bad, you know, I'd feel like, okay, this is kind of good, but you know, it might go bad, and that's okay. And that would be great, because there's not as much of a gap there. Like, there is a much higher or much bigger gap between very good and very bad, between good and bad. And when you experience both of those, or like both the very good and very bad, you are going from, like I say, one extreme to the other. And that takes its toll, even on the good side, because the amount of, like, I tell you, that, like, 2-day hiatus where she was really tired, and I feel like I could tell she was tired, and she messaged me back instantly, and she was very apologetic, very genuine. The amount of relief I felt, it felt like I'd just received a call from the doctor saying, your results are negative, you are absolutely fine. That was the exact sort of relief I felt. I felt it in my chest, in my head. It genuinely felt like a weight had been lifted. And see, it's strange, because I'm acutely aware that the bad could come back at any time, but am I prepared for what that might entail? No. No way. Not by a long shot. There's nothing I can do to convince myself that I will be ready for when the bad comes back. And I mean, I think it would be fine if things, like, progressed. Because at that point, you know, you've sort of got something nailed down. It's not your problem then. You sort of think, well, if she's gone, it's fine. You know, there's no chance she's ever talking to anyone else or anything. You know, you don't have to worry. Everything's going to be fine. It's more sort of, you're a lot clearer on that front. Whereas now, obviously, there's no like verbal contract or anything. We've not agreed on anything, and fair enough. You know, it's still too early for that. But that just means I'm not as clear as sort of my brain craves to be. And I understand that that's not the way life works. That's why I'm trying to sort of just persevere with it. But doesn't mean it sucks any less. There's nothing I can do to sort of prepare myself for that. And, well, it sucks, basically. There's no other way of saying it. It sucks. And again, as I say, if this is one of those things where, you know, you are a regular functioning member of society and you don't really experience that, then great. You are not going to understand this, and that's fine. If anything, I envy you. I wish I had no idea what I was talking about right now. But if you are like me in that sense, you know, I'm pretty sure it's very common amongst neurodivergent people like myself. And so it's probably quite a lot of people experience it. But it's just, it's rough. It's rough. There's not really many words I can say. I'm not really a great lyricist or wordsmith, whatever the hell the correct term is. It feels really, really rough, and it takes its toll. It's exhausting, and I hate it. But I willingly do it because, you know, there's a shot that I can be happy there. You know, I'm starting to get to the point now where I'm just sort of thinking, what, like, in that sort of 2-day slump, you know, you go from well, obviously being the highest you've ever been, to just sort of thinking, is it really worth it? Is the happiness really worth it? And then you start to think no. You know, preparing yourself for the worst. You're like, you know what, I'm content with this. I'm content with not being happy. And then all of a sudden, the notification pops up. We're back in the game, boys. You know, it's... I feel like I'm betraying myself, in a sense, which also doesn't help. But, I mean, there's nothing really I can do. This is, unfortunately, how my mind is wired, and I don't know... It's so potent. Like, that sort of state of being is so extreme and potent. It's very real. It's very... I don't know what the word would be. Like, you can really feel it. When it's there, you know it's there. Like, there's no denying it or anything. There is no denying that. And so, it's tough. No matter how much I try and get over it, I don't think I ever will. And I hate that. And I hate myself for that. And I hate any unnecessary pressure I might apply to people because of it. But there's little I can do to help that, I'm afraid. I don't think I'll ever be able to. And I'm just sort of hoping one day I can, you know, meet someone that understands that and doesn't, like, see me as a massive psychopath, because I promise I'm not that bad, alright? I'm not at a level yet where I think I need to be institutionalized. I see something positive and I want it. You know, my brain doesn't really understand the idea of delayed gratification. You know, things have to take time. It sees something and it sees the potential there, and it just wants to skip the middleman, cut out the middleman and get to the end results. And as much as I know that's not how it works, I think that makes it worse. Like, I know that's not how it works, and yet I like strive for that anyway. So I'm never I'm always on edge. I'm never calm. You know, it's one of those where I'm always going to be wired in that sort of situation. And it has been tiring, but I feel like unless I get a definitive no, or I don't see this going anywhere, I will be like this. And I hate that. I really, really hate that. And I think I'm an awful person because of it. Because even though I try to not let it interject into said conversations with said people, sometimes it's really difficult. Sometimes you just sort of think, well, I mean, I'm trying not to think like this, but how do I know it's not influencing what I'm thinking? And yeah, that's basically that. There's very little I can do to sort of quell that. And I mean, hopefully it's clear to those that might watch this and don't really understand the concepts, like, straight away, that with the amount of precautions I put in place to sort of keep myself in check and make sure I'm not pressuring people, even if I do feel a certain way, like, in that sense, I think it is better to suffer in silence, because you don't want to scare people away too soon. Like, yeah, if things progress, I will probably say, you know, I struggle with this really bad. And so, just to, you know, keep me calm or whatnot, I don't think it's unfair to say, well, I don't know, send a message saying, I'm just going to go to bed, or I'm really tired, so sorry if I'm a bit quiet for the next couple of days or something. Like, obviously, I say, we've only been talking for 3 or so weeks. I can't really go punching my weight around, you know, straight away. And so I just want to be sort of understood in that sense. Like, I don't want to pressure anyone. I will suffer in silence if it means that they are more comfortable for, like, when it starts out. I think that's only fair, because I don't really want to sort of trauma dump people with all of this shit straight away. And so it's a bit unfair on me, I think. Not because, you know, I feel like I should be able to talk about this no matter what. It's just sort of, I can't really deal with these emotions, and yet I put myself through it because I think there might be something good at the end. And it's not their fault in any way. It's nothing to do with them. It's just, you know, the way my mind is wired. I can't control that. And so like I say, we are very similar. I know she would understand if I told her, but I don't want to just sort of burden her on that yet. And so that's why I don't. And I just sort of suffer with it. I hope it gets to a point where, you know, I can wake up one day and the doubts don't start creeping in instantly, and I can just sort of live with that high all the time. That's all I'm chasing. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just not destined for that. Happiness can't be for everyone, otherwise there wouldn't be such a thing as happiness. If everyone was happy, we wouldn't know the scale. And so maybe I'm just one of those that it's just, I'm not destined for it. Unfortunately, though, that doesn't mean I won't stop putting myself through this absolute hell if it means that there's a chance. And I don't know, maybe I'm foolish for that, but I suppose, you know, for someone so negative, the sort of, there has to be something route for me seems quite unfitting, but I feel like it's the only way we as people can cope. You know, there has to be something. And if there isn't, then what's the point? And I just sort of have to keep telling myself that. Even if it means putting myself through this shit all the time. But yeah, I think that's all I really wanted to talk about today. Just wanted to vent about limerence and how I absolutely despise it, but unfortunately I think it's necessary. Well, I say... No, what am I talking about? Sorry, I'm concentrating on this. I absolutely hate it. And I just wish it would go away. But it won't. And I think that's what I meant by necessary, you know. It's not a necessary thing. I don't like it, but it is unfortunately such a fundamental part of my brain that I think it's necessary for me to talk about it, because that's just, well, it is my way of life, really. And so I need to sort of try and come to terms with it and discuss it, otherwise I'll never understand it and I'll never get over it. But yeah, I know this one was a bit rambly today. I feel like I needed to shout this one into the ether again, because this has been really weighing me down over the past few days. And, well, that is what it is, I suppose. But yeah, thank you for, I suppose, listening if you made it this far. And, yeah, bye.